And as you know, the communicator kind of has their hands in all of it. So
Sure. Have you had to do any new hires to handle that type of work? Or
well,
do you have people with experience that step in?
we're finally, thanks be to God. I mean, well, we'll believe it when we see it, getting like the actual physical hardware for live streaming, because up to this point we've just been filming liturgies and then streaming them, but not like live streaming. And so we're looking at hiring someone probably for the live streaming.
So where do you go to get the information to understand what it is you need? What is your resource for that?
Don't know yet. I mean, that's really, I mean, it's up to the pastor really. So we haven't had that conversation yet, but I welcome thoughts or ideas or job descriptions or tips if anyone has them.
So we just had a year-long, we had a volunteer who came forward, and then like a community education, he had a relationship with community education. So they loaned us equipment and he took care of everything. And he's done, which, you know, I'd be tired too. It all kind of came to a natural point of we needed to do something else. And so we're actually, this doesn't help you on the personnel side of things, but I think we made the arrangement yesterday to have Al from All Saints in Lakeville. We bid a couple of people, but we just got to the point where like, we can't handle it. We don't know. We only know enough to be in trouble. And so Al put an installation that made sense and the price was reasonable. And so I think we made arrangements. I think he's going to have something. We're going to kind of have a rocky couple of weeks here because we're still going to keep trying to stream. But we should be having a professional installation before Holy Week is our goal. And Al seemed really reasonable. I think he's done other churches. I think he did like St. Michael's Farmington. So there's certainly a few people in town that if you want to get somebody who's already up and running, I'm sure they'd help.
Yeah, I mean, we've got someone, I guess to clarify, we have someone doing the actual like install. His name is Brian. He's from Metro Sound, and he's someone that our musician knew, but it's more like hiring someone to physically come in on during liturgies and like run the things and make sure the presets are there and like monitor the comment, you know, like it's that person that we're needing to hire, which yeah, I mean, that's not my area. Like I come in as a writer and an editor and like with ministry background, but not like the audio visual side of thing. That's not my like area of expertise. So, so yeah, so we'll see.
Very good.
Jody, are you like, are volunteers able to help with yours over there? Is it pretty easy to manage once everything gets installed, or do you need to have somebody with that technology background to be able to do it?
It's something I have a lot of anxiety about, so I'll lead off with that. I have a couple of people who have volunteered that say that they're happy, and I'm under the impression that once we're installed, it's very like you can set a follow of instructions and we'll have presets, but I have to recruit people because, like I said, this guy's tired because he's been the only guy for a whole year, and we don't want that again. And we are going to make sure that staff knows how to do it, so we could do it in a pinch, but I know I don't want to be here every weekend doing it either. And so that's something we are actively doing, but we're not in a position to hire. So it will be a volunteer ministry. I'm encouraged that we have 2 people already without even promoting it. That's just like chit chat. So hopefully a few more will come forward. And I think if we aim for 5, then that's, you know, like one Sunday a month, and Holy Week will be a little intense, but I think people know that. That's how we're doing it.
Rhonda, which St. Tim's are you at?
Oh, in Blaine?
Okay.
I can add that to my, is there another St. Tim's?
Maple Lake, I know that there's one out there.
Okay, well, here we go. I put my name there because I can't remember who's with what church. You know, I'm still new enough or which organization, so.
I was just thinking that's a good idea I just added my church too, because I'm the same way. I cannot remember locations for everybody, and I'm sure people don't remember my location either. So I like the idea of putting churches with your name or organizations that you work for.
And Ansley, you and I met last week in person.
Yeah, I was just thinking about you. So that's
Oh.
great to see you again.
Yes, now you have live streaming of daily mass. I mean, did you hire someone for that?
No, ours is also volunteer run. We just, right when the pandemic started, we just put a call out there and kind of asked people who we knew were maybe a little bit techie or had some sort of background. And so we have a nice little team. We are actually going to be installing some new video equipment, so we're going to have to kind of start over. So we're hoping that those people will still be okay with this new technology, and then we might have to also recruit some more. But yeah, it's all volunteer led.
And then are you the one that kind of oversees those volunteers?
You know what, actually, so we use Ministry Scheduler Pro for our other ministries that happen at Mass, like for our EMs and whatnot. So our liturgist is the one who deals with that, but the software kind of does all the scheduling for us. And then one of our priests, Father RJ, oddly enough, he has a background in video. He worked for a video production company before he was a priest. So he was the one who like purchased all of our equipment and kind of figured out a way to make it work. Because I mean, I can shoot a video, but the whole live streaming thing was totally new and still is. So he's like more of the point person. He has more knowledge on that.
Well, who do they call? Who do they call to troubleshoot if they run into issues during it? Or that's what.
Yeah, that's a big issue, and that's why we want to kind of upgrade our system to something more professional. Because right now it's Father RJ, since he's the one who put the system together, which doesn't really work because he's up there doing Mass, so he's not really available to troubleshoot. And so things have definitely gone wrong, and we've just kind of had to improvise and say, like, just be patient with us because this isn't our expertise and we're just still learning. So it hasn't been easy or perfect by any means.
It's hard. It's been a whole new level of added stress this year.
Oh yeah.
And then there's varying degrees of thought on it. Some people are really frustrated with it. Like, we want people back to church. We don't want to do the live stream anymore. But now I'm like, we invested all this money. You know, we just have to make a better live stream strategy or think about how we want to use it better. Just had this discussion with our pastor last week. Like, we need to figure out what you want, what's your vision in it, and how are we going to continue that? And for us, I am the holder of it for now. And I have 4 volunteers, well, including myself, 4 people that run it. And then I'm training another one. So hopefully 5, but we're all staff because we did invest a lot of money in the equipment. And there are problems. And to do the sound, you have to get in the sound closet. So you need a key. So they're just, all these different layers on it that we've decided that this is a paid role. So whenever they come and do any sort of live streaming for whatever it is, like our faith formations using it, whatever it is, then it hits that budget. And that it is a paid role because it's vital to the people that need to receive it in a lot of ways. So we have a higher quality of capability because we're paying for it, but I can't tell you the number of times that I've gotten calls in the middle of them, right before Mass has started. I don't have sound. I don't have this. I don't have that. And I'm like, I'm at home with my family.
Yeah, and that's why we're looking, that's a big reason why we're looking to hiring a company to come in and install this equipment and then train us so that all of us know the same amount. And then if something beyond that goes wrong, we can just call them and say help.
All right. Well, that is also on our agenda today at some point, but I'm glad we kind of got a kick on that topic. And so we can circle back to that later. It looks like a lot of people are on. So I'm going to start off with our prayer for the morning. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, amen. O Jesus, through the Immaculate Heart of Mary, I offer you my prayers, works, joys, and sufferings of this day for all the intentions of your Sacred Heart. In union with the holy sacrifice of the Mass throughout the world, in reparation for my sins, for the intentions of all my relatives and friends, and in particular for the intentions of the Holy Father. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. All right. So, we were just talking a bit about live streaming. And since we're on the topic already, maybe we could just continue on that topic in case, I know Dean had some questions back a little bit ago about live streaming and best practices with all of that. And so if anybody has anything to share about what's working well at your parish. It sounds like some parishes are having a lot of staff that are really having to take the brunt of the live streaming piece of it. And a lot also have volunteers that help out with it. And, you know, I'm sure we're all using different tools also. Like we at St. Hubert are live streaming on YouTube. We're doing our daily masses and then our Sunday 8:30 mass. And we've got a team of volunteers that thankfully we had some really great technology volunteers that were doing the soundboard before all of this started. And so they kind of took the head and decided, you know, to run with the live streaming piece of it and trained all the volunteers on it. So thankfully, we've really had kind of a volunteer-led ministry there that's been working well for us, but I know that is certainly not the case everywhere. And, you know, you have the resources that you have. So if anyone has anything to share about what's worked well, the tools that you've used that have been great, vendors that have provided live stream training, resources, that type of thing, feel free to jump in and share that.
I have a question just by a show of hands. How many people are doing it via YouTube now? Okay, so what is the other options people are using?
Well, I didn't raise my hand because we're not live streaming. We're filming and then streaming both on YouTube and on Facebook. And then you know, we use OneStream. We have a subscription to OneStream, which allows us to, you know, take recorded video and then stream it. It is confusing for our parishioners because they think it's live because of course it says up in the corner on YouTube, like live, and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is kind of obvious when it's like, you can see the sun coming in the stained glass windows, but it's night when it's streaming. But yeah.
Yeah, we've had to use the words premiering because we do that with a lot of our things, like scheduling a premiere for something. And actually the nice thing is that that's what YouTube and Facebook kind of call it, like when you're uploading a video and then they schedule it that way. But I mean, the term, you know, live stream mass is just, it's just out there so much that I think that it's kind of what people are used to. But I mean, that is frankly one advantage is people want to be able to watch it, not necessarily at a certain time, but at what time that works for them. So, yeah, I mean, we kind of had our experience, I guess, to answer your question, Dean, with both, not with mass, but with events that we had going on. We used Restream to put on all three. And recently we're looking at using Lula, which is supposed to stream to Instagram as well as Facebook and YouTube all at the same time and free, which would be really nice because Restream is not free. So we're going to look at that a little more, but we didn't have a real successful test run, so we haven't used it yet.
Okay, thank you. I also am curious, I'm sorry, For those of you that are paying people, which I do see that as a benefit in some situations. Do you have a position description for such a thing? Because what I'm seeing is that so many staff have picked up duties, and it's not, they were the director of youth ministry, and now they're really the director of youth ministry / technology. But it just feels like it's being treated as other duties as assigned, which that, I think we all agree that streaming is going to continue. Although I have heard a parish where the pastor has decided as soon as the dispensation is over that we will not stream at all, which I think is wrong. I think that's short-sighted, but I'm just curious, does anyone have a position description, or is it just kind of like, well, we're going to pay you and here's what we're going to pay you?
I created a position description based on information from, we had our equipment installed by ALS, which is a Audiologic Systems, I think it's called. They're local. Basically, I just saw their van, and so I called them. So it was great, though, because I really, really liked them. Anyway, I asked him, I said, what kind of position description do I use to get somebody? So he had a template that he forwarded to me and that I adjusted for a technician we wanted to work on, basically for sure on our live stream, and really kind of just the whole weekend, especially not knowing if we're going to live stream every mass in the future, if there's more masses, if whatever. So we just kind of put out a job description that was 10 hours and considering it mostly weekend work. And it was a good job description that I wouldn't have put together because it's from that field. Because the ALS, they put in systems, but all their employees have worked in churches doing this. You know what I mean? So like I said, well, I want to know a job description that I can use to hire Jake to work on us, 10 hours. And what did Jake used to do at that church, And so that was really helpful because it basically went through, it laid it out as 3 things: pre-mass assignments, post-mass assignments. And so I felt it communicated the job really well to a prospective person. And we put it on Indeed and Handshake Break, the one for college students. Anyway, I didn't know that one. But we got about 8 applicants, even though it was 10 hours a week, So
Heidi, I'm going to ask you to share that.
To share it, like, how would you like me to share that job description?
Megan?
Heidi, you could either, like, if you have a link to it, if you wanted to put it in the chat box on here, or you could email it to just one of the core team members and we'll send it out to the group.
Okay, I could do that.
Because I think whether or not you're hiring or it's a volunteer, that's a helpful tool.
Yeah.
I'm seeing nodding, so because clarity of that is very helpful. So Heidi, as always, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think that especially looking at the Triduum coming up and Holy Week and Easter and everything, these live streaming resources are going to be so important in reaching our people for quite a long time, I think, moving forward. Because even like Dean had mentioned, we're going to continue doing this because even once the dispensation is lifted, there's going to still be a population of vulnerable people who are not going to be comfortable coming to Mass or unable to come to Mass. And we want to be able to continue reaching those people too. So does anyone else have anything on live streaming or just an awesome referral to somebody or tool that you're using? Otherwise, we can move on to talking about our Lenten programs and what we're offering this year for that. Amanda?
I just have a quick referral if anybody needs one. Quality One Automation. He's out of Shakopee here, but he does all over the cities. He came in and set up ours, and then he actually goes in and sets up like bars with sound systems and the TVs and all of that. So he kind of has a span of things, but he's got ours up and running. So Quality One Automation is his business, and he just happens to be my nephew. So I'll give him a little plug too.
I have another question. If, is anybody's church also in the process of trying to get together a committee of sorts of people who would then evaluate their live stream and continue looking at it, or, you know, what they want for the future? Or is there any committees anywhere that's going on? No.
No, but Heidi, you caused me to think one other question on live streaming. I want to know if parishes are live streaming funerals if they're charging for it. And so first off, are you live streaming funerals if requested? Raise your yes. Many funeral homes have gotten good at doing that. Like the one that normally services us, they invested in that. So they just plug into our system and they do it. But we're also going to be seeing, I think, as requests for live streaming of weddings and that. And I don't know that we have a good, how, you know, it involves staff, and it's not me being the parish director of, well, it's money, but it does involve time and planning and commitment and such. And I don't know how we get at that, but I think that it's, people have gotten used to it, right? Grandparents have gotten used to that. I can watch my grandson get confirmed at St. Joseph's here coming up in May via that, and I can, you know, feel a part of it. And I don't know that we've really, I think we're doing it by default, but not by design, if that makes any sense. And so maybe it's more something to think about, but I'm just curious about that because it's a little bit different when you have to have extra staff there and funerals come up last minute.
We've decided to do it. Yes, the funeral home will offer it. So we decided to kind of make it an a la carte thing based, and they would pay for that if they wanted it. So if you want live streaming from us, we'll handle it for funerals or weddings. And the cost is, the cost we came up with was what we pay for a cantor for a wedding or a funeral. We just were like, okay, that's a comparable time frame job. You'd have to be there around the same amount of time. We thought that was a fairly good comparison, and I'm sure that's different at everyone's church. So that's we went with the same rate as we're paying the cantor, and as of now we're using our pool of people that are trained to do it, and it's going to kind of be first come, hey, we have a wedding, does anyone want to do it? And it's then a cash job to them. It's off the clock. They're not paid through the church. It's going to be paid through the people whose wedding or funeral it is.
That's a good reference point.
Where do you store it? Do you put it on your channel? Like, can the public see it, or how do you share it?
Yep. So for those types of event, we would create it as unlisted and only have to only share the link so that they have access to it, but it doesn't come up on our channel.
And then do you worry about any copyright or anything?
I try not to worry about that. I worry about a lot of things. It's in my brain, but I try not to spend too much time on it. I mean, our music person does take a lot of that into consideration with everything that she puts out, and then, you know, to make sure they're very adherent to all the copyright with that. So I trust that she's doing her part in that.
Yeah, they're paying the licenses, they're paying the fees and such.
Right. I still think a lot of those have, you know, they've talked about how they've extended a lot of those separate licenses, which used to be separate for streaming, you know, during COVID, just as a ministry to be able to extend that. So I don't know which of those are still extended, but like FDLC, the, you know, the liturgical groups, I think Federal Diocesan Liturgical something or other, they work with Father Tom Markevich just out of our office, and I know that they've put out things before about streaming. So I would just say whatever you would do for your mass streaming, best practice, do it, you know, with the unlisted, and the same thing with, you know, frankly, the forms, you know, the release forms. There should be a very seamless way to get release forms for those whose likenesses are very widely seen on this. And, whether it's your, your lectures or things like that, where it should be just very, very seamless of just, hey, just know this is going to be online. People will see it. Just sign this quick form. You're done.
We had that conversation yesterday with the faith formation group because they are going to live stream every First Communion Mass. So since we're doing it that way, and I said, you're going to need to make sure you address this at the parent meeting, that they will be live streamed and if they have a problem with that, we have to, address that now. So, you just have to keep that in the forefront of everyone's mind because they forget about it now that they're used to seeing it. It's stationary and it's running, but we have to do due diligence in that.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding is if you pay like OneStream or Restream, that you are paying a package for, and it's based on downloads. So I was wondering if the charge for funerals or weddings would need to include, a fee. Part of the fee goes to your technology fee that you're paying if you're doing that Restream or OneStream. I don't know. Can anybody speak to if their charges are based on the people watching and how many downloads it is?
Not for Restream, at least. That's purely paying for the ability to put on multiple channels. Now, if you're offering service, I think YouTube's the way to go, right? You just have one link. It's unlisted. It's not kind of in with the rest of your mix. Now, for First Communions, you might decide to do that because it's of enough interest to the community or something like that. But I mean, if it's just a very individual person, I don't know as you would need to, at least with the services we've seen, it's not about how many people are using it or downloading it. It's simply that technology that allows you to put it in a couple places via like a stream key. That's really what you're paying for.
Okay, thank you.
Has anybody else used any different companies to have the technology installed in their churches? Because we're just putting together our RFP to get that work done. And we only have a couple of companies so far on our list to send them to. So has anybody else used anybody that they like?
We have a company called Midco that is local. It's MIDCO, and they've worked with our church and other churches for a long time. And like they installed our new projectors, and then we've had some problems with the streaming, and then that's who we brought in to help adjust it. And it had to do with it appears it had to do with a volunteer trying to be helpful by improving the system. Or an error on the part of someone who was working on the system. But that's Midco, and they've been around a long time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
See, that's where I get in my concern about volunteers, and I love volunteers, is that oftentimes with technology, you have varying degrees. So you have the person who's like a soundboard designer for, the Guthrie, who's like, oh, I can make this, we can make this a little bit better, and let's tweak that. And then the next mass or whatever, you have a person who's just like, oh, okay, I do what the instructions tell me to do, and it works out fine. But then that previous person improved it, and I know they intended to improve it, but it really became kind of a wrench in the works, if that makes any sense.
Oh, totally. That happens with websites and social media all the time as well. I've even had to tell offices about that, and one of them who had an intern who came in who was very excited, and she's like, okay, what's the first thing I need for starting social media for the office? I'm like, a succession plan. You're here for 3 months, don't do great stuff and then leave it hanging. Of course, what happened, but that's beside the point. You're absolutely right.
Well, I think 2 volunteers come in and they're all gung-ho at the very beginning, and then they don't realize the monster of the beast of the church and the amount of time it takes. And so eventually they trickle off of their amount of time that they volunteer. And so you're still in need weekly, hourly, needing help. And they're like, I got baseball games to go to. And I'm going on vacation this week. I'm not going to be around. What? It's Holy Week, So volunteers have limited hours, and and they vary and they tend to trickle downward, not upward.
Yeah.
I felt that ALS helped identify products that were user-friendly for volunteers. They got the idea that I had volunteers, so we have volunteers running the cameras. And they got that when I looked at the different equipments we could purchase and what to buy. So it's nice to have that company you do go with know your workers instead of the high-tech people.
Yep.
Oh, we're not installed yet, but we bid 3 different people. One was a company, one was Al from All Saints in Lakeville. I think his last name's Shostag or whatever. He's made his own business doing this. So he'd be worth asking. The reason we went with him is because, like Heidi just said, obviously he knows the church situation. And so he gave us very realistic, like, this is what we did and this is who we're using. So if you're looking for that, that's who we went with.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Let's move on to talking about our Lenten opportunities. I know a lot of churches have unique opportunities they're offering this year, since we're doing a lot of different virtual things and probably a combination of virtual and in-person type things. So love to hear what you're doing, what's going well, what's maybe just a little too much, and kind of share some of the best practices of Lent so far.
Hi, I'm Patty, and what we're doing at St. Joe's, we're in New Hope. We also have the Plymouth facility or our church, but however, that's the little church, and we don't operate that during this time right now. But what we've got is a whole plan laid out. We still continue doing weekly streaming of masses as well as having them. Those are all live streamed and put on to YouTube as well as Facebook. And then upcoming, we'll have communal penance that we will be streaming. So everything I'm going to say we're streaming, we're having in person, and we're putting it on both the YouTube and the Facebook platforms. So we have communal penance, we have Palm Sunday. With Palm Sunday, we're also going to have, last year we created Palms and Alms. And so it was a drive-through situation where people could come after Mass that they watch on TV or wherever, and they can pick up their palms. But this year we're also going to offer communion at the same time. And then of course we're going to have a box so people can put their alms giving and rice bowls that we did for CRS and that type of thing in the collection. And then Easter, we are doing the full-fledged, going back to Fridays. We have Lenten Friday Mass that we only are streaming First Friday and on St. Joseph Feast Day. And then we also have Stations of the Cross that occur every week on Fridays. We also had Father tape that. So those who didn't want to physically come to church and walk through those stations, we have that available online for them. So it's in the same church, it's with the same, Father and whatever. So it kind of brings them comfort, hopefully. And then going into Easter or Holy Week, we have the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. All of those masses are going to be held with 2 masses on Sunday. And then a drive-through communion after that as well. The other thing we're doing is a spring mailing that we're sending out here in probably a week or so. And that will go out to all of our parishioners in hard copy to their mailboxes. And it will just provide the Lenten schedule, the Easter schedule, as well as just things that are going on in the church. One of the things that I don't know, once again, in my dreams at 2 o'clock in the morning, I came up with an Easter egg hunt on our website. So that I planted little eggs all over, about 25 little Easter eggs with the picture of St. Joseph on them. And so people are going to go find 19 of them. I'm kind of tying in St. Joseph, the year of St. Joseph with this as well. And then they fill out a form and turn it in. And Dean, we're going to give them prizes for the top 3 random drawings. So I need some money there. Anyway, that's kind of what we're doing. Dean, anything more to add?
Well, and then first off, and Patty's had a lot to do with all of that. We also are bringing back parking lot masses this Saturday night, which I told Father when he first said this Saturday, like a month ago, I'm like, this was in the coldest of cold. I'm like, are you sure? And now he's like, the weather's looking good. But we have a lot of people who are very, I didn't pull up how many people are registered yet, but people really are looking forward to that. And that's where they feel they're safe at the moment and such. But I do see this pendulum where every mass I'm at, people are telling me, oh, I got my first vaccination shot. I got my second vaccination shot. And that seems to, for some people now, what they don't realize is that younger people, we don't have our first vaccination shot or our second vaccination shot. But there does seem to be an inkling that people start to be coming back more as we go forward. But no, and then that mailing, I got to give Patty and the team credit. That we did a mailing last year for Christmas, and people liked that, especially. And here's what's going on, and we're kind of doing it seasonally. So we're going to probably do it 3 times a year. So we'll do it before Christmas, we'll do it before Easter, and then we'll do it to kick off the fall, which this coming fall, hopefully we'll all be kicking off new things or renewing things that we couldn't do in the last year.
Are your masses signing up for Easter? Do you have to sign up, or is it first come, first serve?
Yeah, we have all of the masses online on Eventbrite. And so it's all the Sunday masses, all of the Easter masses, the communion of penance, the drive-throughs even. So we have a good count of how many, palms and how many Blessed Holy Eucharist that we need to make sure that everything is there. However, we, have your standard walk-ins or drive-throughs that did not sign up.
Yeah, and usually, like every Sunday, people are worried, but usually the amount of people that walk in is offset by the amount of people that don't show. So we might have 214 registered, 20 don't come, and then 19 show up that weren't, and we just quick sign them in and seat them.
And back to the reservations, I had talked, I don't know, maybe a couple meetings ago about Eventbrite. It is free. One thing I really like about it is that we can kind of control how many reservations that we have. Like Dean says, well, let's push it up to 250. So we were sitting at 200 for a while. I was able to just go in there and modify all of the events that we had created. The other thing about Eventbrite, and not that I'm selling it, I'm just finding it very simple to use, is that it's out there. So if somebody is out there on the internet looking for a music event, our church will show up as an event that they can attend. So I've had several people go, oh, I didn't know. So, it's also a form of marketing that I didn't realize that we were going to gain. So that's, just another little tidbit.
And Patty, are you saying that's through Eventbrite, or is that through your website that people are?
Through Eventbrite, yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting. And by the way, I love the idea of the Easter egg hunt on the website. If you don't mind, I might do that too. Getting
no
people to our website people will call with questions, and I'll say, you know what? It's right on our website. Yeah. So I
to that, it's actually on our Year of St. Joseph one. So if you just want to go out there,
okay.
And if you want I have the form. I can give you the form in a hard copy or a editable copy, so you can just, but you can do your own thing too.
Oh, why
Design-
recreate the wheel? Would love it if you share. Thank you. And St. Odelia, we're doing all that you had mentioned as well. We're live streaming every single mass except the 7:30 a.m. Easter Mass. Our stations every Friday live streamed. And another added wonderful thing we're doing, and it's so great that PAA actually is driving this and they're organizing it, which is fabulous. So it's not on the parish staff, but we're doing a drive-through fish fry and stations, so that the kids, the school kids, are going to be creating these station cardboard pictures. We have Father Tim and our previous principal will be reading. They'll be doing the scripture readings with each of the stations. And as people drive through, they'll be looking at the stations that the kids created. And on our website, you'll download the YouTube. So, and we're gonna have a picture of that station. So there will be no faces on the YouTube. It'll just be voice and the image. And then you go over to the next station, and then you pick up your fish fry dinner at the end. So, and then that's on Friday, March 26th. So we're still kind of working out the detail, or they are still working out the details. It's great that the school is kind of driving this with the school kids. So kind of fun.
And are your nights doing the fish fry then, Amy, or?
Oh, no,
Okay.
no, we're having it catered, Stonehouse Catering. So we've really simplified it. We did ask them, we absolutely asked them, Knights of Columbus Men's Club, but they were not interested. And they don't have the volunteer capacity. So I think that's when Jeannie went and talked to our PAA chairs. And how do you say no to Jeannie, right?
Yeah. I am curious how many other people are doing, well, Heidi serves at my home parish, and we had the drive-through fish fry. How many other people are doing a drive-through fish fry or something?
Not drive-through, but takeout.
Or takeout, okay. Yeah, similar. Okay, no, I can tell you that the meal I got at Guardian Angels was excellent. I thought it was really interesting. The person who provided it to me was holding one of those talking bass fishing things, going to the river. As he handed it to me, there was good humor to be had, but no. All right, sorry, getting off track.
I can share about what's happening at St. Timothy for Lent. So yeah, we're doing every other Friday, our Knights of Columbus are doing a takeout fish fry, adapted from normal practice. We did Ash Wednesday, we did Ash and Dash in the parking lot. And now we're doing the young adult faith sharing. We have a young adult faith sharing group on Zoom on Thursdays. We have a kind of regular parishioner Lectio Divina on the gospel reading of the coming Sunday on Wednesdays, that like one staff member has been doing like the facilitating and the kind of the spiritual content, and I've been the tech support. So like sending out the Zoom link, helping people to make sure they can do their cameras off and on, their microphones off and on. We recorded a Stations of the Cross and live streamed it, and now it's just up available on YouTube and our website. We're doing Sunday Vespers. So every Sunday our we're recording and streaming sung chanted Vespers in our sanctuary. 2 in-person penitential services, one of those streamed with Form 3 General Absolution. Promoting Stop St. Tim's Overseas Project, which is sort of like our rice bowl, so our like Lenten almsgiving solidarity with people in need. And then the project I'm most excited about, because I'm kind of masterminding it, is we're doing a St. Tim's Sorrowful Mysteries of the Rosary, which I'm going to stream on Palm Sunday. And so I've chosen, with assistance, 5 parishioners and invited them to just like make a 3-minute audio reflection on the mystery. Basically, like, how do you find God in suffering? Like, where, amid the challenges of this past year, where are you finding hope? Like, how is Christ present in that. And then, you know, recording the actual words of the rosary. And then I'm using PowerPoint to put together the audio files and the slides, you know, basically as a way to sort of create, when people can go and attend Mass anywhere, attend stations anywhere, listen to homilies anywhere, like how do we do something that's specific to St. Tim's and like having parishioners hear and connect with one another. So yeah, that's been an exciting project. One heartwarming story, we had a 90-some-year-old parishioner with macular degeneration who lives alone, who's been in the parish since the 1950s. One of our deacons called her over the phone and held his phone up to his laptop so she could participate in the Zoom Lectio Divina last night. And she loved it, and people loved having her there. And it was just one of those moments that makes it all worth it.
So, Rhonda, we've been talking about trying to do Lectio Divina. So this is a group Lectio and such.
Yes.
Are you I don't want to take up time here, but who at your parish would I talk to about how you launched that?
Me, really.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll reach out to you later.
Cool.
But thanks.
One thing that we did right before Lent that was really well received was send out a little mailing. I called it our Lent bundle, and it was just some printed resources. We're trying really hard to send it home, so help our families to pray together and to do things together as a family. That way, that faith formation is happening in the home in addition to in our church. So that included a little booklet for Stations of the Cross, and we're doing that weekly. Every Friday at 5, we're doing that both in person and virtually. So then people can follow along with their little booklet. There was also a little Lenten craft that was good for kind of younger families. It was a recipe for a Lenten spiral, and it's kind of similar to the idea of the Advent wreath, where you just like move every day one step closer to Easter. So there's 40 different slots on this little spiral that you make. And it's just one of those little visual reminders of moving through time. And then there was just kind of an explainer about Lent and Lenten practices. And then I think we had one other, just maybe like another little intro card with kind of what's going on, what our schedule is, what our schedule will be for Lent. And people just really, really liked that. I think we're doing so much virtually that just getting that physical mailing in the mail was just really important to people, and they really appreciated that. And I've heard that it helped open up conversations within families about Lent, people being able to talk to their kids about it. So that's something that I see us doing more in the future as well. Even when we're back in person, just looking for opportunities to help our families to practice and live our faith.
How many parishioner families do you have that you mail out to?
About 800 families.
Okay.
We have a pretty similar set to a lot of what you guys are saying. We did also do kind of a Lenten mailing just ahead of Ash Wednesday. It was a little bit different, more geared to our seniors, maybe, if that's, I mean, it was applicable to everyone, but I think we were really thinking about the seniors who are telling us that they're just feeling sort of forgotten and left out. And so we wrote just a really like emotional, we miss you, we love you, it's been a really hard year. And then we kind of turned it around to like, here's how you can participate in Lent and what we're doing for Lent. And then we included, we've other years given out a key tag for everyone. And so we returned to that practice. And then instead of people picking it up in church, we mailed one out to everyone and then said there were additional ones here if they wanted additional ones. And we've gotten a really good response from people just saying, wow, that letter really touched me. which is surprising because as much as that's what we were hoping, people are getting a lot of mail. And the fact that they read it and then took the time to call in means it was worth it. And we're about, I think our mailing was about 1,100, but it was very a standard business envelope. It wasn't it wasn't a whole packet like Ansley had. It was able to be just regular business mail.
Jody, did you say you were targeting that towards seniors, or did you then end up sending it to every household? 1,100
We
sounds
sent it
big.
towards everyone.
Oh, okay.
My
got it.
target audience was, I'll be honest, I don't read all the mail I get. We wrote it so that everyone would read it, and we intended to send it to every family. But the person that I pictured when I wrote the letter was the senior who's been saying, I miss my church family. I'm lonely. It was just a target audience thing.
All right. Well, I'd love to talk a little bit more about what plans are looking like for Holy Week. I know our liturgy team has just been planning it out this week, even finishing up some of their details, because it's hard. Most years you can just kind of adjust what you did the previous year and a couple maybe little tweaks, and that's not really our reality anymore. So, and with everything changing on a regular basis, it's always hard to know what it's going to look like in a couple months. So, so we at St. Hubert are planning to do the signups for the Triduum and Easter Sunday. We currently are not doing signups for our regular weekend masses just because we've had plenty of space and haven't needed to. And so we're just doing like the big major events. But I'm wondering if we haven't decided on Palm Sunday yet. And I feel like we do generally get a bigger crowd on Palm Sunday, but are your churches doing a sign up that day, or just Triduum and Easter, or what are your plans?
We are doing signups for everything, just in case. It's easy enough to do. I think somebody had mentioned, that there are a lot of people who don't sign up and come anyway, and there are people who sign up and don't come. So it's kind of we have had some overflow in our courtyard, but not in a while. So we don't foresee any problems, but it's easy enough just to get it on Book a Pew, have people sign up. We still encourage people to sign up. So yeah, just yesterday I set that all up, and we're trying to communicate that to everyone. So just on the safe side, we're saying sign up. And we are still at 175 capacity, although I guess we can up that now. Certainly can. So I'll talk to our worship director on Monday, but yeah, just for safety reasons, or not safety reasons, just on the cautious side, we're having signups for everything.
And we have signups for all of the masses as well, except for the weekday, Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays. And if they don't sign up, they end up signing in. So we have documentation of everyone. So it's easier just to have it, in a spreadsheet ready. What's your name? Boom, check it off, you're done, versus having to write their name and whatnot. So it's an efficient type of thing too.
Our daily mass people, we just have a sheet, and they just come in and they check their name. So we have each week, and then it's I see the same people every Wednesday for the most part, and they're used to it, and they come in and they just check their name off, and if somebody's visiting, there's extra spot to sign, and so we know. But people at first were like, and now it's just like, oh, okay, no big deal, because you want to make it as easy as possible, right? So like when people are coming in, I have one parishioner had said to me, I'm going to miss when we don't check people in, because I get to say hi to so many people and such. So, and I said, yeah, but I'm looking forward to when we don't have to have that concern. But it's not now yet.
Yeah, that's a good point. We actually, for our 7:30 a.m. daily mass, we don't ask for signups. But we are now having people sign in. I love the idea that you've got the names and you actually check them in, because they are the regulars that show up. I think that's kind of a neat way to just greet your
Yeah.
parishioners. I like that.
Yeah, we're also doing signups for any in-person event, even our daily masses, just to keep people in the habit.
I think that's a good point, because consistency is so key. You know, why do I have to do it on Sundays, but I don't have to do it on Wednesdays, and then I don't have to do it on, you know, Good Friday? It's just easier if people have that consistent method that becomes an expectation. Then it's not a big deal when we change the rules. So.
Are your Holy Week liturgies looking different? I know generally, you know, Good Friday, we have the veneration of the cross. So I know we're still doing that, but we're obviously not having anybody touch or kiss or do any contact with the cross as they have in the past. But for the most part, I think our liturgies are looking pretty similar to how they have in previous years and non-COVID years, other than obviously the space limitations and needing to social distance and keep everybody safe in those ways.
I think I'm curious. Has anyone seen anything from the Office of Worship about washing of feet? I probably missed a communication. I mean, we're not going to be doing that, or we don't see a way to do it. Has anyone else
I
heard
haven't
it?
seen the communication. I know we're not doing that either. But yeah, I haven't seen anything official, but I probably wouldn't receive it myself.
Yeah, the latest would have been the February 22nd Lenten memo, which I know went out a while, and it's going to be in today's Archdiocesan update. But
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things in there. I'd have to go back to see what was specifically addressed in that memo, but that would be the latest from the Office of Worship.
Okay.
Oh, and that is on our COVID resources page too, if we wanted to pull it up. In fact, I'll go ahead and I'll find the link to put it in the chat here so everyone can take a quick glance if you want.
Is anyone doing anything interesting for Easter as far as welcoming people back? I know this was a conversation topic in our chat a little bit ago about kind of like a campaign to bring people back to Mass more on a regular basis. Is anyone doing any handouts or any interesting marketing to reach people who are coming on Easter who normally maybe aren't coming to Mass?
No. Well, in an earlier discussion Nicole and I had before this meeting, I think some of it has to do with, as long as there's dispensation, it's hard to jump on that. Now, one thing we're doing, which probably many of you already are doing, which is we had pulled bulletins and just had them as online only, but then thought about it and like, you know, I can go to Cub or to Byerly's and pick up a flyer. But like we were handing out the stuff for Catholic Services Appeal, or we were handing out. So we just upped our bulletins back up so that we can, like for the parking lot mass, we're going to hand out a worship aid and the bulletin. That we just started that this week. And then we're going to have that for people who come, because a lot of people, if you think about it, come a little bit earlier if they're registered, or they come early. You kind of have a captive audience there. So that is one thing that we've upped. We were down like at 50 bulletins that we mailed to people, and now we've just upped it. So that's one change we're making that maybe you could look at doing for people who are coming.
We were planning on doing a mailing, just reminding people, not just in our not just our parishioners, but everyone within our parish boundaries, inviting people to Sunday or to Easter Sunday services with the sign up link. And if they bring the card, they get TBD, some kind of an Easter basket, but probably some kind of a book actually. And the idea is to capture people's information at that point. So a little bit of an incentive. Not that that's reinventing the wheel at all, but that was something we're going to try and do. And we did a sort of similar thing, but not quite as organized for Christmas. For Christmas, we had given out, everyone who attended any of our services got a Christmas present, wrapped book that our school children had wrapped. And it was just a Matthew Kelly book. But then what we did in January was we had a virtual book club to kind of connect back to that and let people form new small groups, new trust groups and community and relationships, even in the virtual age. So I'm kind of thinking we're going to do something similar, but I don't know exactly what that is yet. We have a meeting this afternoon.
Mm-hmm. And Laura, we actually had, and this is the parish that I go to at Holy Name of Jesus, they had something similar with Christophonics, The Search. And I think a few parishes might have been using that one. But yeah, my husband and I are in a virtual group for that. We love that.
It's really nice to be able to hit people anytime, pandemic aside, where they live, right? There's a certain safety to that. Certainly also, I think we want to be in person for that kind of thing. But as we're just kind of trying to think of all of the ways to try and connect and bring people back and bring people in, give them the easiest route, right?
Well, the other thing about that too is how many times have we talked about the broad range of zip codes that each parish reaches? You know, as much as you think about parish boundaries and a lot of your common folks are in the area, like, I mean, you might have people from, you know, Forest Lake going down to St. Paul or whatever it is. And, you know, in our instance, we used to be at Holy Name and then we moved to Fridley. And so that's part of why we're there. You know, we wouldn't come out on a weekly basis to drive 30 minutes, but for something like this, to know the people that we like seeing on Sundays, it's a great opportunity. So yeah, I like that thinking that, you know, in general, in person is best for many things, but always know that for exceptional circumstances, that's something you'd want to look into.
Nicole, I had a question. You had that great gratitude banner that we did for Christmas. And we created billboards. Is there any chance there's such a thing for Easter?
Yeah, actually, I know. And I'm so sorry we don't have it sooner. We just finished up a letter template that hopefully will be in today's parish leadership update. You know, and we have that resources page we did post with like link and resources. So certainly check back on that. There was one graphic we designed that was kind of based on the concept of risen, which I liked, but it was more square. It wasn't really horizontal. It wouldn't work well on a banner format. And I kind of threw the idea out there of even before thinking of, unless it was in subliminal messaging in kind of that Detroit example that was going around, but it was based on the idea of hope. You know, this is a season of hope. And so I know that they were going to kind of conceptualize that, but at the same time, the time it will take to get printed, I know we're really inching up on it. So let me find out if we can still get something on that concept. If not, we might just post the risen graphic in case it is something that you guys would like to use, but at least the letter template, I know that we'll have that. It should be today, with the understanding it's a little longer. There's lots of great stuff in there. Annie from our office wrote it and she has this really good spiritual eye on things. But like any template, if it's too much for your audience, if it's over the top, you know, pick and use whatever is helpful to you. But it is based again on that idea of welcoming people. You know, like if you're willing and able, we have room for you. We welcome you, you know, kind of that sort of an idea. Oh, and you know what? I will post in the chat too, again, a link to that Lenten resources page as well. And in case you can kind of see what's there. There are many outside organizations that are already posting and have for a while posted Easter resources that you might find helpful too. So I'll repost that. I'll try to keep Colin from adding to it as well this time. I'm like, how did those random numbers get in chat? Oh, my son got to it.
All right, another topic that came up for the next meeting is emailing and just talking a little bit about some of the best practices for what we're doing for like e-newsletters and reaching our parishioners through that channel specifically, I might turn this over to Jody to kind of talk a little bit about, I think you had a couple specific points that you wanted to touch on for this one, Jody.
Like so many things, I'm just curious what other people are doing. We, with COVID, needed to kind of resurrect our email newsletter. We hadn't been doing it with regular frequency. We'd used it more as an update than a regular. And now we have a weekly email we send out. And I'm just curious, like best practices. So what you guys find to be helpful, if you think you have a great newsletter and you want to share it. I guess I'm just looking at what other folks are feeling is successful to set up some benchmarks for ours.
I can share that we have an e-news that goes out every week, and it is created in Flocknote, which has all kinds of fun little gadgets that it can use. You know, it has a calendar, it has surveys. One of the things that I really like is a little button. So in our e-news, basically, I'll have the weekly mass schedule, and then I'll have a little button underneath each one. Make Saturday mass reservations. Make Sunday mass reservations. So, you know, all they need to do is click that and it brings them right into Eventbrite, and then they can pick their time or whatever. Other things that I'll have in there is, you know, things that push out to things that are highlighted in the bulletin. So if the bulletin, you know, you can read a hard copy bulletin and it'll say, see https://www, blah, blah, blah. You know, I mean, the thing is this long, right? So in e-news, I just put a link in there. So all you have to do is click the picture and it automatically brings you to that great big long ugly website, right? So they can get to their information fairly fast. And then I also take that and I get a CSS link from it and I put it over on our website as well as our Facebook. So then I highlight it with, you know, Father Terry succeeded in his knee surgery, you know, or whatever. And then Easter Mass schedule and, you know, whatever other highlights. So I'm always putting, you know, little ticklers out there, what they're actually going to see if they open the link. And, you know, we're getting, you know, a typical 45, 47%, which is very good, apparently. I get a little sad about that because I sit there and I'm going, I spend all this time and only half the people open it up. But that's our business. So that's kind of what we do. But it's inconsistent because it's, I can say it's Tuesday or Wednesday, or sometimes never on Mondays, because it's all based on when the bulletin gets published from our site. Then LPI, the publisher, has to publish it, and then I have to get the link from there. So I also include that bulletin link in our e-news. So, you know, if it's late that week, then e-news goes out late that week. But we try to get it very consistent. Bulletin is pushed out on Monday, e-news is pushed out on Tuesday evening.
So since COVID, our newsletter, which goes out weekly on Thursdays, today it'll be going out, that has totally replaced our bulletin since COVID. So we're not doing any form of bulletin, but we do a very long and in-depth newsletter every week. It just highlights, you know, any news, any events coming up. Sometimes I'll even link to like articles that are just relevant. And most of the time it's linking to our website and to different web pages that have all the details, because I mean, normally it's like, I try to only feature about 10 things on the newsletter just because it gets so long, but I try to use as little words as possible in it and just have pictures, headlines, like a sentence, and then linking to the more information, which is usually on our website or to some kind of a sign up form. So I do think we will end up bringing back the bulletin eventually. And now I saw that we can start doing like printed worship aids and things. So I think it'll probably be soon, but I'm kind of going to rethink the bulletin and see if it needs to be what it was before, which was a pretty long and lots of words, and maybe I can just kind of put the highlights in the bulletin from now on and do something a little bit shorter, just because before I was putting so much effort into that, and now I'm not sure how I did that, because I feel like I'm still so busy without doing the bulletin that I'm worried about trying to fit that back into my schedule now. And I think I've started to put more time into getting everything on the website, making sure that that's current and things are easy to find, and then doing the newsletter. So I think that I really want to be able to keep putting the effort into that. And I don't want to have to take time away from that with the bulletin. I don't know if other people have felt that or anything, or is everyone still doing their bulletin at this point?
I can jump in and say it's kind of like a big question at St. Tim's. I mean, my predecessor, because I only started at the end of August, she shifted from a weekly to an every other week bulletin. And since then, like I send out a Friday flock note, and like that's really expanded. But again, there's that Jody mentioned before, like the older people who feel forgotten or left behind. And I mean, I have had some phone conversations with parishioners. They're not going to turn on a computer. They're not going to go to your website. They're not going to get an email newsletter. And they're like hurt and sad that there's not a weekly bulletin. And I really want that. And it's just like a huge amount of my time, so it's really a tricky, and I kind of get the sense, like, this is not to be shared, but like, I kind of get the sense from my direct supervisor, the administrator, that like, maybe this doesn't make the most sense to do a bulletin. Maybe we don't shift back after COVID, but then of course, like you're kind of leaving behind those parishioners who, that's their connection, especially if they're not coming in person. So it's a hard balance. I don't know the answer.
Ron, you make me think of what Pax Christi had shifted to, which was they did a monthly, well, actually it was a magazine, I think, but they did something monthly that they mailed. And then their bulletin was literally just a one piece, front and back of a piece of paper, and such. But then their parishioners, I think, got used to that monthly connection. And then it said what was going on for the month and such. That's a lot of work too. I don't deny that.
I was really happy to get our leadership to agree to take the bulletin to every other week, because it just wasn't necessary with not as many in-person events and everything being links, and you need the physical, that all of that. So I was really pleased that we got to go to every other week, and we have decided to maintain that until we are, at least to reevaluate, until we are full scale back with in-person events. There's just not necessarily as much of a need. However, what we adapted the bulletin is now we no longer have a separate liturgy guide. I use the bulletin space for that. So it's dedicated, that the front cover, and then after that, it's the first page is always the liturgy guide. So then we eliminated the needing extra, and we eliminated the printing of liturgy guides for seasons. It's just in there, they know to get it. So then on the off weeks that it's not a full bulletin, which is for us can be 8 or 12 pages, it's a 4-pager on those off weeks. That's just the liturgy guide and maybe a couple highlights from the previous week. So not a full bulletin, but still gets the liturgy guide in their hands every week. That's been a really good compromise for us. And then they pick it up and take it because the liturgy guide's in there too. So
who do you do your bulletin through?
LPI.
So how did you transition to every other week with your advertisers?
Well, it's worked out because on the off weeks, I do the liturgy guide. I use it as just a 4-page bulletin. So the advertisers are still getting their space in there. So
we have 2.5 pages of advertisers.
Yeah, ours is a 1.5 pages for us. So then it can go 4. I know you're stuck on the 4, 8, 12.
Yeah.
No. They were really willing to work with us this year. I found LPI to say, if you can't do a bulletin, don't do it, you know, it's okay.
Yep.
Or if you need to print 10, that's okay. I was happy with that, but I understand that is challenging. We just worked out that we could do it and make it fit. Sometimes I have to squeeze that liturgy guide on there, but I know what you're saying, Ansley, with the timing, you know, not doing that. I realized on those off weeks how much more ability than I had to focus on moving us forward. You know, so much of that bulletin time is spent, yes, communicating, but it doesn't feel like it's always moving the needle forward. It's more like reporting and trying to get it done. So I've recently after going through all of that, I reached out to our leadership and proposed. Before I came, they had a part-time person doing it, and then she quit right before I came. So of course it got lumped onto me. And I said, can we go back to that model? Because I think my time could be better spent. And since we're doing it every other week, that allowed me that opportunity. So it's short term for now. We'll reevaluate it. We're on a fiscal year, so we'll reevaluate that, and crossing my fingers because weeks like this week, I have a ton of prep for a bunch of living stations and a fish fry and all this stuff that I'm creating from scratch. But I know the bulletin's in safe hands and it's getting done. So it's a hard battle to battle with all of the communication juggling.
We had moved to the model of Pax Christi too, with sending out a monthly magazine, which is very story article based. And then obviously it has our upcoming events and activities that are going on at the parish. So those actually are mailed to all of the households. So people continue to receive that mail every month. And we were doing the front and back, black and white, very simple bulletin, which we stopped once COVID started too. And I think the one thing people liked looking at that for was the mass intentions, if they had, you know, a mass intention for a family member or a friend. So that was kind of the main thing that we used that for. And then, like, you know, here's the events happening this week, the more immediate things that people needed to know about. But honestly, since we stopped doing that, I haven't heard a peep of people missing it. So I think this is an interesting conversation to have about, now that we've shifted so many of our resources and our efforts towards different things. And I am sure that you all feel the same way, that our workloads are full. You know, we're keeping ourselves busy with everything we need to do. What makes the most sense to bring back, and what do we just kind of let go for now? Has anyone done a survey with your parishioners about what communication channels they're really using right now, or what is the most important thing for them to get in order to receive information? I mean, I know we all have so many populations that it's not a one size fits all. So the number one communication channel for the seniors is going to be different than for the young families or whatever. But has anyone kind of evaluated that and looked at where are the most important things for people to receive information? We did recently do, and I think it was right after. Go ahead, Emily, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, we were actually just asking ourselves this question because we are in the process of reevaluating ours as well. For our heritage newsletter, it goes out twice a year, and it's like a magazine type of booklet that we send out, and our person just retired who was doing that. So, new person doing it. So now that's going to be continuing, but our question is, we're also starting an e-newsletter campaign. So we'll be doing it more regularly. I'm thinking once a month. We don't have the amount of news that you guys have. But, you know, I don't think it really behooves us to do it weekly. But in any case, we're kicking that off, and that's going to start very soon. So our question was, do we ask our customers, do you want the heritage only in the hard copy format? Because we would like to phase it out. It's a money pit. We, you know, send it out to every customer. It just disappears. It's the only benefit to us is it sometimes reminds people they can donate to us. in a hard copy format, and they cut out the little thing and they send it in with a donation. But it's something we really haven't, we thought about asking customers, and then we thought, well, we don't actually want to know what they have to say, because our customers are older and they're going to say, keep sending me the, you know, hard copies. But I think they're starting to get used to going online and looking for things that way. So in our case, I think we're just going to do like a 1 year with 2 options available, and then maybe phase out the heritage for us, the hard copy.
I have a question for those that have transitioned to every other week or a monthly magazine. How did you get your staff to transition to needing to make decisions way earlier than what they do? That's my biggest challenge. I think our parishioners would like it. They'd be fine with it. I just can't get our staff to make decisions until last minute. And I just don't know how I would transition them. I mean, the monthly magazine, you're really looking at needing that 2.5 months prior to, right?
Yeah, every time they talk about the monthly magazine, I'm like, how do you get your people to submit that?
Yeah. We would have so many changes afterward, and maybe that's just a transition that we have to stumble through and make a lot of mistakes and transition through. I can't imagine those first 6 months of how many times we're going to publish something that totally changes after it's published. So how did you get your employees to transition?
In our case, because we're different than a parish, we have more lifestyle feature articles. So we're putting in a new columbarium / ossuary. So we know that that's coming because the installation is going to happen in, let's say, March. We know it's coming, so we start writing the article back in January, and then we just take pictures right before deadline and put it in with that. So we're able to like do some of that long range planning, because so many of our things are bigger ticket that we have to spend money on, so we know what's happening. For events, it becomes more challenging because we just either we know about it, we can say the dates. We usually have a scheduled year ahead of time. So in January of 2021, we should be knowing what we're doing the whole year. This year, we have no idea. So we're not sure if we're going to be able to do in person anymore at all this year. December's kind of a question mark for us. So we are in the process of trying to figure that out ourselves right now. But generally speaking, we see our newsletter, that's the magazine, as more of like a lifestyle article. Here's how, you know, what cremation is for Catholics and that kind of stuff, you know, less specific to timing.
I'm just curious, do you think that the problem is pandemic related, or would this be a problem regardless? This would be a problem regardless.
No. It's a problem regardless, but the pandemic is a useful excuse.
Yeah. Well, the other thing you have to think about too is how you could look at those different tools, and maybe it's worth comparing, like, where do they excel and what are the shortcomings? So, you know, the newsletter, you know, if someone's going to sit down and read a magazine, I was just looking at some things because I'd heard something, I wasn't sure whether to bring it up, but about the e-newsletter kind of being dead and focusing more on e-campaigns actually. And so the problem is with the emails, people kind of have their attention span very short, which we face as well. You know, we're trying to streamline our communications, but in order to do that, you have to put a lot more into that one communication, right? So if the average email attention span is 11 seconds, you got a problem on your hands, and that's kind of where the data is leaning. On the flip side of that, for, you know, if someone's going to take the time to look at a magazine, they're probably not going to spend 11 seconds on it, right? They're probably going to read a little bit more in depth and kind of dig into it a bit more. So, you know, I guess that'd be my suggestion, is just kind of compare a little bit. And the tendency is always to say, okay, I'm going to put everything in every communication because someone's going to complain. They're going to say, I like that new magazine and you didn't put it in the magazine, so I didn't know about it, right? That's always the temptation. But maybe there's a way to balance it. Maybe you have your rich content there and then you feed it out through social media and put it in a few other places, but that's kind of where you focus on that beautiful design. So you have a little more time and you can do that. And then maybe you have one calendar at the end with a little note that says, you know, sometimes detail is subject to change. Find the latest information at this link or call the parish office during these hours, you know, and just so that you give them an out, but you can still lean into where they excel.
So I've just finished a very disappointing cycle. We'll say it that way. I had a project that I thought, you know, it is easy to say that COVID is a part of changing it, but I sometimes feel like a square peg because my background's not ministry. And so I feel like I've spent the last year thinking we were streamlining our communications, and we've made a lot of progress. We've gone to like a quarterly newsletter. That's a lot better than pushing out frequent and oftentimes too heavy content. So like you're saying, Nicole, like better design, better stories, then people want to read it instead of like, wow, it's just a lot of words. And I've had some success shifting my teammates into thinking about projects instead of departments. So like typically they would all submit like a page to the newsletter, and sometimes it wouldn't be timely content because they just had to have a page. And so I shifted them to like, if you have a project, write about the project, or tell me about the project, I'll even write it. And so we were like really getting somewhere. And then with Lent coming, I do think the pandemic is a portion of like committing to dates and times, but I can't get, I feel like I go to the staff meeting and I give a deadline, and I send an email and I give a deadline, and I just can't get them to fundamentally understand that I need time to create, and I can't create something that I don't know what it looks like. And so I got all the way to the end and I sent this proof to everyone. And a gentleman said, oh, my project is actually called X. And I had, Y on the document. And so I am with you guys. I don't know what else to do. I keep just taking a different tactic every cycle, but anyone who's doing it successfully, I'll take any suggestions.
I'll say that, yeah, there's definitely those challenges with doing the monthly. But we, like Emily had mentioned too, we also, this year obviously is way different with pandemic life and all of that, but we do plan out our calendar a year in advance. So starting in April, we're going to start looking at the entire calendaring from July through the following June. So we kind of have an idea of what's on the calendar and what the big things that are coming up. And so if I don't get something and I know it needs to be in there, I will follow up with people and say, hey, do we want to include something about this? If I do give a lot of reminders at our staff meetings and through emails and different things like that. But also the nature of this year is a lot of things are last minute, and a lot of people don't know their event is happening. It's not 2.5 months in advance. It's about 6 weeks in advance that they need to get it to me before the newsletter comes out. But yeah, there's definitely the same challenges, but like Brianna was mentioning too, this is more of a kind of a story based and article based, and we have different themes every month. So like this year, for example, we've had a lot of death in our parish. We've had a lot of people pass away. We've had some young people who were unexpectedly, tragically passed away, and it's been really hard. So our last issue was about grief, and I included a lot of content from like families who have gone through grief, sharing their coping mechanisms, different things from the pastor, ministering to people, resources, that type of thing. So that's like the main focus of the magazine, is kind of just ministering to people where they're at a little bit. And then the upcoming events that I have, make it in there. If people don't have their events ready yet, it's not going to go in there. It'll probably go on the website and in the e-news, but the reality is everything's not going to make it into every communication channel, and that's just the way it's at. I'm not going to force people to give me their content, especially if things are kind of up in the air a little bit right now too. So we just kind of do the best we can with the information we have. And it works out well. I mean, we haven't had a problem with people saying, oh, this event was going on and it wasn't in your magazine. I think people understand, especially this year, that things are just kind of happening more on the fly a little bit, and not everything's going to make it in.
We still do a weekly bulletin, but I've condensed down. We used to put the whole calendar of events and all that in it. And we don't do that anymore. That was just, I kind of went through and figured out what was incredibly time consuming for me and what, really needed to be in there and what didn't. And then especially with COVID, for a while, we went down to just a 1-page bulletin. But now that we're back, I just kind of focus on the upcoming, like what's need to know, right away. for this week, which makes it a lot easier to lay out and a lot faster. And I have a deadline of 9 a.m. on Monday. And so if someone doesn't get me their stuff by 9 a.m., it's not going to make it in unless, you know, for some reason there's a pretty significant gap that I can, you know, move things around. And then going back to e-news, we actually do a little, so we have Father does a little preview of the Sunday Gospel and does a little kind of write-up to get people thinking about, you know, what they're going to be hearing on Sunday. And so we do that as the top portion of the newsletter. And then below that is upcoming events or, you know, happenings like Lent Mass times and things like that that are important for the week. And we have a pretty decent open rate with that. But that's kind of how so it's typical e-news stuff, and that goes out on Fridays each week. And so it's nice that it's always different content because it starts out with Father's article about the gospel. It keeps it fresh and keeps people wanting to open it.
So for those who do the magazine, and Megan especially, how are you getting the articles? How are you coming up with those ideas for stories? And then are you writing them, or are you kind of spreading the love on that task?
So I kind of plan out my themes a couple months in advance. And actually this year it's been more last minute planning out themes based on what our needs are and based on the information that is really relevant. I've needed to be a little bit more on my feet on that as opposed to planning out too long range. But based on the theme, I have a number of staff people who will write for me. Our pastor, our associate pastor usually will include an article. So I always have a leadership article in there, which is either our director of discipleship, our pastor, our associate pastor, or our principal in the school. So they'll kind of write like an article overarching the theme of the magazine. And then I have a team of volunteer writers who, I have one lady who is a homeschooling mom, and she just loves to write about different family life type articles or things focused on, you know, living your faith at home, things like that. So, and then I've got two other volunteer writers who will basically just write on any theme I throw at them, which is really nice. And then, so it's a mix of staff people, volunteer writers, leadership articles within. I sometimes write, but oftentimes I don't, because I have a lot of people that fill in the pages. Like if it's this next issue that's coming up is going to be beauty in the church, beauty in nature, finding God in beauty. And like our music minister will write on it. So I would say I'm fortunate to have a lot of people on staff who are skilled and gifted in writing and willing to do it, and also some volunteers that I tap into.
It's funny you mentioned that, Megan, because we had a pastor recently who was asking for some feedback on his job description for communications. And I said, you know, the one thing you have to keep in mind is if you know, yeah, at least hopefully you do, you know, the volunteer skills of your parish. So if you have a lot of really strong, you know, folks with video capability, then maybe in not as many people that like writing, maybe you hire a strong writer. And the same thing with graphics and things like that. Like, you know the gifts of your community. And I mean, you can try to recruit in different areas, but I know when I was at Holy Name, I didn't do graphics a lot. I just, you know, that wasn't as much of my thing, but I like to write. Oh, and then photography, that was a really big thing. I'm not a photographer. So I had a volunteer photography ministry, and folks would go out and they would get some great photos to send in for the newsletters. So, you know, that's kind of one of those things, you know, knowing your strengths and then knowing where you might like some help, and hopefully you can identify some of those resources out there.
Absolutely.
At St. Tim's, we have a quarterly magazine called The Cornerstone, which was done by a handful of parishioners, I think all of whom had gone on like a retreat together. And I was sort of tasked when I started with becoming the editor-in-chief as the first full-time communications person. And so there's been a long process of sort of working with the parishioner who's been an editor-in-chief for a long time. So it's 8 pages. I do it on Publisher. I mean, I write some of the things, I kind of create a theme, and then I think I'm going to shoulder tap parishioners. I mean, the challenge is sort of move it being away from just sort of people's musings towards there's a theme. I'm going to have a page that's always like kind of branded as younger voices or fresher voices. So it's like either by people under 40 or like maybe it's something I write, like highlighting the young guy who's going through the RCIA right now, you know, so that there's a page specifically for, you know, the subset of the parish that's of a different demographic. And it's quarterly, and so the themes kind of go with the seasons, right? And how that plugs into the liturgical year.
I have an off the wall question. You just brought up publisher, and that's what I design most of my things in. And I was just recently told that Microsoft is no longer going to be continuing to keep publisher updated, and that it's going to be non-existent. And I haven't found proof of that. I'm just wondering if anybody else has heard about that, because I'm a little concerned, because I don't know what else I would use, because that's what I have right now.
That is concerning. I haven't heard anything.
I have not heard that. I was going to try to Google and see if I found anything, but I don't know. As long as they're making money on it, I don't know why they would discontinue it.
Same conversation, Amanda. Somebody literally told me it's not supported, and then I spent some time Googling, and I never found proof one way or the other. But somebody specifically claimed that they heard like directly that. So there must be some truth to it, or there must be like.
Adobe?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I said, do they work for Adobe? Oh no.
Oh no, but that was my first like, we can't afford that. But I didn't find any substantial evidence.
Just on the affordability factor, we got my subscription under something, I'm not sure what, but it's $19 a month for the whole suite. So I don't know if that's because we're part of the school too. I don't know what they put that under, but I was paying $56 a month personally before, just because I had it for my own business at home. So now, I mean, that's obviously a substantial savings.
We get ours through the school.
Yeah, when I was a freelancer, I was able to get it as a contractor of the organization for $20 a month. There's just kind of something about the way I set up my license, and it's just like the one program that you use, right? And then you add on if you're getting more. So it would be for InDesign, I would imagine, for our bulletins or our publications. But
yeah, mine's for the whole suite. I can use any Adobe.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to look it up. It looks like the publisher, they might be offering it through different packages. So it might not be in a default package anymore, which made people think they weren't supporting it, but you can still purchase it separately. That's like the latest I kind of found there. I was curious. I'm not as familiar with Canva. I didn't know if that worked quite as well from a publication standpoint. I know it works for flyers and things like that, but yeah, I do wonder what kind of free options are out there, though your bulletin company might have different feelings about that. I know some bulletin companies were almost mandating one type of design, product, so that might be something to consider too.
In an effort of respecting everyone's time, we're at 11:30. I know that Nicole and Dean both have updates to give, so I want to give you guys each 5 minutes or so to share. And if anyone needs to jump off, I completely understand. I will post the recording so you can listen to the last part of it if need be later too. But Dean, if you want, Dean had an announcement about an upcoming APBA meeting that he would like to share.
Yeah, so we're gonna, and we'll send out or Megan, I think I sent you the Zoom link.
Yeah, the Zoom link I attached to this meeting invitation that I sent last night, as well as a couple attachments that Dean had with that too. So those are all in your Flock note. You should have that, and let me know if you need me to resend it.
So next Thursday, starting at 1 o'clock, these are the presentations that you can come to. We kick off with a great presenter. Nicole is presenting with Tom Halden, and they're going to talk about communication. And this morning, Nicole showed a nice kind of, this is the different forms of communication and when they come out. And I think it's going to be helpful. Then we're going to have Tim O'Malley talk about Project Isaiah, which many of you may have heard a little bit about, but it has to, it's an initiative in the Archdiocese about improving how the Archdiocese serves. parishes and such, so that'll be very good. And then we're going to end, so all the topics affect all of us in communication in some way. We're going to end on the synod, which all of your pastors had a Zoom meeting 2 days ago. It's Thursday, sorry, on Tuesday. But essentially, if your parish was kind of like, oh, the synod's coming, then COVID happened, and we kind of had this delay, I would say there's a huge relaunch, is how I would look at it. But all the parishes have been asked to recommit your ambassadors, recommit. But there's going to be a lot of communication needs for all of us come this fall, because and there's going to, when you think about inviting people back, I know at our parish, when we talk in parish council, doing the synod listening small groups well is one of the great ways to invite people back and such. So Father Bamenek will be presenting on that. But all of you will, if you aren't looped into the synod, and Nicole's going to improve on what I just said, but I would say that it needs to really be on your radar, because that's going to be coming up here this fall. And then on June 10th, there'll be a lay ecclesial ministry day, kind of a synod event for all of us, and we'll get more information on that. But Nicole, improve on what I said and such.
No, actually, you touched on most of it. The only thing I was going to mention was the June 10th event. So we do have something in Arch Update that will be coming out today that's just with details. But essentially what it is instead of Spring Formation Day, they're having on June 10th a day to get a sneak preview at what those synod small groups will look like. So you'll actually get to participate in one of the sessions and kind of see how it works, which I think will be really good for selling it and trying to promote it and get people engaged in there. You know, there are lots of reasons, and actually we have a synod small groups website that I just finished pulling together. It's mostly for ambassadors, but if you're interested, you can certainly check it out to find out what it's all about. But the idea is that there are many benefits to having small groups beyond just the synod, even though it will be invaluable for the synod as well. So June 10th, if you can come, fantastic. I just popped the link for that synod small groups page into the chat in case you want to check it out and find out how they're running these. The other thing to keep in mind is that you know, I think the onus of it will really be on the people that are trying to get the volunteers. So each of these small groups, in order for the data to get back to the Archdiocese, you know, we're working on a facilitator that will help engage and do good conversation, and then a scribe that will help write everything down so that we can harness that information from, you know, 186 parishes. So to do that, to have one of those for each of your small groups, that's a lot of volunteers. So that is, I don't know if that would be falling on your plate necessarily, but just be aware that's going to be a big ask. And once you have folks engaged in this way, hopefully that'd be something you can keep engaged. You know, you can keep them engaged in other ministries and just continue to, I don't know. And it's a great opportunity, I think, to get a lot of people involved, you know, and just like Dean said, to welcome them back. But no, that was all my thing was just to let them know. And also I should have an update on the on that Easter graphic by end of day, it sounds like. So unfortunately it won't be in today's Arch update. The letter template will be, but just keep watching that Easter 2021 page. And hopefully we'll have that up soon. And maybe I can put a little post on our Facebook group once it's up there.
Perfect. Thanks, Nicole, and thank you, Dean, and thank you everyone for joining us. And the April meeting we're going to have, and Nicole, do you want to talk shortly about that, about Ellen joining us in April? And I'll send out meeting information soon on that. But
absolutely. So Ellen Gunning, she's out of Ireland, and she leads a company just called the PR Academy. And so it's a lot of training on not just media relations, but how you brand your image. You know, they talk about things like, you know, what is your actual company image? Like, how do people view you? What is your wish image? What do you want to be like? Things like that. So she'll go through these sorts of just really great rudimentary ideas of how you can think of really marketing your brand. And it can go for corporate as well as, of course, in the ministry area. So she's involved in the Catholic Media Association, formerly Catholic Press Association. She's been offering trainings, and just got to know her. I was on a radio show a while ago, you know, singing the praises of this group. And so that was fun. But she said she'd love to join in on one of our meetings and just, you know, whether it's talking a little bit about PR Academy or even just being in on the call and hearing the sorts of things that we talk about, it's just, you know, she's very excited to join us.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. And again, thank you, everyone. And good luck with Holy Week and Easter and everything. And we will see you next month.
That's good.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.